Hey y'all, House Rifle Company here. This will be the YouTube segment to our tech tips. So this is gonna be a little bit longer form content. You're gonna get a little bit more detailed breakdown on any findings we have or any tips that we have about the AR-15 platform, okay? So the guys that are coming from Instagram already probably know the rundown here, and that is me and my buddy over the last week, we're taking some longer guns out to distance, and we were shooting a particular 16-inch carbine of his, and we were noticing some very interesting patterns whenever we put it on paper to group in zero before we started doing walkbacks to distance, okay? And we started researching, looking, seeing what we had done differently to the rifle recently that would cause that vertical stringing, and lo and behold, it came down to muzzle device. Okay, so as we can see here, I have a Cat Spooky 1 on the end of this, 1x16 left-hand threaded, taper lock design, very, very good products coming out of Cat. We pretty much exclusively run Cat silencers on our stuff. But this flash hider, as you can see, is a symmetrical design. And after our testing, we learned that that's actually hyper important when it comes to the accuracy of your weapon system. At HRC, we do a lot of accuracy testing. We group in zero all of our rifles, and we were wondering why we were seeing vertical stringing out of this one particular rifle. And the only thing that was different between this rifle and that rifle, besides the rail, was the muzzle device that we were using. Okay, so we did a little deep dive and started doing tests. We were switching it out on this, we were switching it out on that one, switching the Cat Spooky 1s and Spooky 2s around, and using the Apparition Instruments Nano as well, which is a phenomenal muzzle device that I would recommend checking out. But whenever you have an asymmetric break design, which I've seen a lot more of on the market recently, you can actually, you're venting more gas out the top of your muzzle brake than out the bottom. Now, that doesn't sound like a bad thing. That helps with recoil control, especially when that suppressor's not on there. That's how a brake works, okay? But whenever you're putting these pressures inside of a silencer, we're seeing uneven buildup. If this is how the can is oriented, we're seeing uneven buildup on the top of the can compared to the bottom, which whenever the projectile is inside that suppressor, it's flying through there, it's still being impacted by your gas path that the suppressor has. That's why you're seeing higher muzzle velocities when you put a suppressor on. And it doesn't seem like it makes that much of a difference, but when you're unevenly pressuring that suppressor you're pushing 30% more gas towards the top of the suppressor than the bottom, you're actually gonna lead to these vertical groups on target that we were seeing. After our testing, again, everything that we do here is application based. So if your application is running a super short gun and you wanna take as much of that bite off that rifle as possible, then muzzle brakes, especially the Cat Spooky 2, is a great option. It does outperform the Spooky 1 in terms of sound reduction, in terms of flash reduction. Cat designed it for that, right? But you have to understand the limitations of what you're putting on your rifle for it to be truly application based. And if you are taking a gun out like this that's designed to be stretched out to longer ranges, and you're really looking to get good groups out of it, okay? I would recommend going with a symmetrical flash hider. And that is, it pressurizes the suppressor at an even rate in comparison to these asymmetric muzzle brake designs that we're seeing out on the market. So, again, like I said, I'm gonna hit it again, application based, right? If this is your application, flash hider. If your application is a shorter gun, you wanna take some of that bite off, muzzle brakes are perfectly fine, and they really will not open your group up that much. But we wanted to put this out for you guys. We'll be posting some stuff up to the Instagram if you want to go check out the groups we're actually seeing in comparison from this rifle with the brake and this rifle with the flash hider, and you will clearly see some vertical stringing on the target. Sorry, we had a little phone malfunction there. Bottom line is that these suppressors and these muzzle devices and anything that you attach to the front end of your gun will impact accuracy in a good or bad way. And it's important to understand how all these factors play together to either get a super accurate rifle or get a not so accurate rifle, and you need to understand why your rifle is performing that way. Hopefully this has helped somebody. I'm not telling you to go out and ditch your Spooky 2. It's a great muzzle device, but if your application is precision shooting, I would recommend switching over to something like the Spooky 1, recommend switching over to the Apparition Instruments Nano, which is a phenomenal muzzle device, switching over to a symmetrical design to make sure that you're getting consistent and even pressure buildup in that silencer every single time.